Do you have no one to practice speaking English to? Do you want to learn how to practice speaking and improving your English skills by yourself? Your first step is to speak to yourself in English. Now, I know this will seem strange to a lot of you, as speaking to yourself is often associated with like crazy people. However, speaking to yourself in English is one of the most effective ways that is not often utilized by learners in order to really practice speaking the language consistently. Speaking to yourself in English really works. An important part of language learning that's not often taught at school, and that is really training your mouth and your brain in communicating in a foreign language. Of course, in a perfect world, everyone will have someone to practice with, but for a lot of people, that's simply not the case. And even if they have someone to practice with, oftentimes they fall into what I like to call the translation trap, where their brain and mouth lacks the practice and the experience and knowledge in order to consistently speak in their target language, and therefore they're always going on an app like Google Translate in order to know what to say and missing out on valuable speaking practice time. So, in order to avoid the translation trap, you need to practice speaking English beforehand. And the best way to do that, especially if you don't have someone to practice with, is to speak English by yourself. Now, at the beginning, it will seem very strange talking to yourself, especially if there are people around. So, a method that I always recommend my students is, especially when they're out in public, is to get their phone and pretend to be having a call or practicing speaking to themselves. Now, while doing this, you can speak about literally anything you like. This could be a film that you saw recently, a book that you want to read. There are really so many things that you can practice speaking about without the fear of judgment from speaking to another person, or feeling rushed that you need to say something or you need to reply quickly. Now, if you don't have any inspiration, you can just find a picture or go outside and try to describe what you're seeing. Now, this method is a really powerful way, not only for improving your speaking fluency, but also getting over the fear of speaking to another person, because you have already practiced speaking English out loud and will have so many more things to say in English because you've already practiced them beforehand. And my next tip is to write stories, and then once you're finished, to read them out loud. Writing is a really great way to practice English and really discover which parts of your vocabulary are missing, or it can be a great way to practice new or difficult grammatical rules in English. However, oftentimes many of my students can write really well in English, almost to a native level. They still can't speak English. Now, oftentimes they'll say that they don't have anyone to practice with. However, they're missing a really important part of the puzzle, and that is to practice reading out loud what they've written. First, this will really help you remember new words, especially when you've written what you've wrote, as studies show that we learn new words faster when we hear them spoken in our own voice. Secondly, this will really help the muscles in your mouth get used to speaking English instead of your native language. And that is a major issue that so many people don't realize, is that they have trouble speaking because they're not building the muscles in their mouth for speaking English. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like writing or has trouble really thinking of things to write, a great way to always find something to write about is to read something in English online and then write a summary about it. It can be 2 or 3 paragraphs. Read it out loud. Now, if there's any words that you have trouble saying or sentences, a great tool I like to use is Google Translate. And all you need to do is simply copy and paste the difficult sentence and then repeat after them. Other things you can do is to find essay prompts, which there are many online, which native speakers who are practicing improving their writing use, and that you can use as well. Now, if you're someone that wants to accelerate their English progress faster, and want my personalized help towards achieving your goals in English, then consider applying for my advanced English coaching program. That's all about giving you the tools you need in order to really transform your English and go from being limited and frustrated in English to having full confidence and really be able to take advantage of career opportunities in English speaking scenarios. So, if you want to learn the most effective ways that aren't taught at school for improving your English, then make sure you click the link in the description or first pinned comment to book a call with me to see how I can help you. Now with that out of the way, let's get back to the video. And my next tip is shadowing. If you've watched any of my previous videos, then you know how much I love shadowing. And shadowing has personally really helped me with my own language learning journey. For a while, I really struggled with French pronunciation and found it really difficult. As someone who had learned Spanish first, I had a Spanish accent while speaking French, and in trying to remove my Spanish accent, my French became incomprehensible for French native speakers, and I very nearly failed a French oral exam. So what really transformed my French pronunciation is shadowing. What I would do and what I recommend that you do is to find a video of someone that you really love their accent or how they speak. Then play the video and then try to copy what they say as close as possible to how they say it. If you want to build up your fluency, then leave the video playing, then shadow what they say as close as possible at the same speed. This will really increase your fluency and really train your muscles in your mouth to speak English at the same speed as a native speaker. However, if you really want to improve your pronunciation and intonation in English, then start the video and then pause after 5 or 10 seconds and repeat what they say during those 5 or 10 seconds. Then rewind it and repeat it again and again and again to as close as natively sounding as possible. Then once you're happy with it, move on to the next 5 or 10 seconds and keep doing this until you finish the video. By doing this, you'll really improve your pronunciation and especially those key sounds that native speakers say differently, and you'll really develop those key sounds that keep tripping you up. By doing shadowing, you'll be really surprised how quickly your pronunciation will improve. To practice telling the stories of your life. This might seem strange to some people, however, it's one of the best tips that I always recommend my students. One of the biggest problems that so many English learners make, and one of the biggest problems English learners have, is that they run out of things to say, or they don't know how to express certain things in English like their native language. A part of that is that they haven't built a sort of library in their brain of stories which they can easily retell to a listener. This is why I love this method so much, because in our native languages, when we meet someone new or talking to a friend, we're often retelling things that have happened to us in the past. This could be a funny story, a former job, something about our culture, all these stories that are you. So what you need to do is to practice telling these stories in English before you start speaking to other people. First, decide on a story that's really important to you, that you often tell in your native language, and then record yourself telling this story in English. At first, it's going to be really difficult as there are going to be a lot of words and expressions that you can't really express in English. If so, say these phrases and words and expressions in your native language, and then when you rewatch the video, find the translation of those phrases in English. Then, once you have these phrases, leave them up on a document on your phone or on your computer and record yourself telling the story again. Keep doing this every day over and over again until it becomes second nature to you, that you can tell this story without looking at your notes perfectly and naturally in English before moving on to the next story. Doing this, you'll build a library of these stories in your brain. And when you're speaking English or talking to someone for the first time, you'll be able to easily access these stories and tell them to your new friend. And in doing so, you'll always have something to say. And never run into that awkward situation where you don't know what to say next. And my next tip is to describe a photo or a scene or your environment in English. This is something that I try to do with my students a lot, and that is for them to look at a photo or a picture and then tell them to describe what's happening in that photo. This is a great way to find any words you don't know in English and build up your vocabulary of adjectives. First, you can pick a character in the picture and try to describe them physically. So if they're tall or short, if their hair is brown or black, how they're dressed, and then try to imagine what that person is doing in that situation. Similarly, if you're out doing something outside, you can look around you and try and describe something in English. Try and imagine the history of, for example, a building, or you can try and describe what someone is doing in a store. Maybe they ran out of food, or they needed to get something for a birthday party. Really let your imagination run wild. Just by talking about these few things, suddenly you'll have so much more to say, and you'll really be surprised by how many words you can learn just by describing a picture or your surroundings when you're outside. All it takes is just adding a little bit of imagination, and within no time, your English fluency will dramatically increase. And my next tip is to read out loud. Similar to a previous tip where I recommended for you to read out loud stories you wrote, reading out loud really does help improve your speaking fluency by combining many of the previous tips. You're practicing your pronunciation, you're building the muscles in your mouth to help you speak, you're learning new words, and as previously mentioned, by hearing those words in your own voice, will help you remember them. And the best part of this tip is that you're practicing several skills at the same time. You're practicing your listening comprehension, you're practicing your reading, and you're also building the necessary muscles to improve your speaking fluency. All you need to do is either find an article about something you find interesting online, or a book that you're reading in English, and simply try and read it out loud. If there are words that you don't know, you can use Google Translate, not only to learn the definition of these words, but also hear how they're pronounced. A really powerful tip that you can also do is to use an audiobook and listen and read out loud all at the same time. The best part of an audiobook is that it's built in, so you won't need to break off from your reading practice in order to figure out how to say a particular word. I hope you found these tips useful. If there's one you plan on starting to use, please tell me in the comment section. Also, if you want my personalized help to improve your English faster, then consider applying for my English coaching program. If you want more accountability, and you want the actual English transformation that you've always desired, then this program is for you. We can have a chat and see how I can help you go from limited and frustrated in English to super confident and fluent, so you can take advantage of career opportunities in English speaking scenarios. So if that's something you're interested in, please book a call below, and then we can see if you're fit for the program. Also, please don't forget to get my free guide that will give you tips, tricks, and advice for improving your English faster. Link in the description and first pinned comment. Now, at this point in the video, you might be wondering how to use these tips to achieve your English transformation. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, then please watch the video here where I'll teach you how to become fluent in English this year. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, smash that like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!